I have been sitting here thinking about this team, and honestly, it hits different when a Carolina Panthers legend gets caught in the corporate crossfire. ESPN has officially cut ties with Cam Newton as part of a massive wave of layoffs at the network. Seeing a franchise icon discarded like this feels personal for all of us who watched him change the culture in Charlotte. There are really two things we need to break down here: what actually happened with the network and what this means for Cam moving forward. The more details emerge, the harder it is to ignore the reality behind the scenes. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your name and city in the comments below. Let's get into it. Carolina Panthers legend Cam Newton has been laid off by ESPN as part of a significant wave of staff reductions at the network. For those of us who watched him evolve from an electrifying first overall draft pick into the franchise cornerstone that redefined our team identity for a decade, seeing Cam navigate the post-playing media landscape has been a point of pride. Newton joined ESPN in 2024 to serve as a contributor on First Take and even signed a multi-year extension in August 2025. Now here's the thing, the network has officially cut ties with him, an announcement that follows similar departures for other prominent on-air talent like Ryan Clark. According to reports from Andrew Marchand of The Athletic, the network moved quickly to finalize these exits. Newton has already addressed his departure on his podcast 4th and 1 with Cam Newton, stating that he viewed his tenure at the network as a personal internship to learn the business, while emphasizing that he refuses to harbor resentment. He also offered a stark warning about the modern media era, noting that failing to own your own platform leads to becoming extinct. Seeing a figure who gave so much to Charlotte get caught in a corporate restructuring feels jarring for our fan base, as we still hold a deep sentimental connection to his era of dominance. The professional coldness described in how colleagues were notified only heightens the frustration for many of us who still view Cam as one of our own. While he seems unbothered and ready to focus entirely on his own independent ventures, we are left wondering about the broader implications of his departure. Does this shift signal that Cam is finally closing the door on a full-time media career to pursue something entirely different? Or is he actually preparing a major move back into the orbit of professional football? Cam Newton was blindsided by the network as part of a sweeping wave of job cuts that saw high-profile talents like Ryan Clark also removed from the airwaves. According to Andrew Marchand of The Athletic, the network moved to terminate these contracts abruptly to get ahead of public discourse, a decision that left many stunned by the cold nature of the corporate environment. The truth is, this situation highlights a volatile landscape for former stars transitioning into broadcasting, where multi-year security can disappear overnight regardless of one's stature or recent tenure. Newton had originally joined the crew in 2024 and secured a multi-year extension in August 2025, but that financial stability offered no protection when the company began slashing its payroll. Historically, we have seen legendary figures struggle to find their footing in media after leaving the field. Yet Newton seems to be treating this specific hurdle as an educational internship rather than a professional setback. While the current front office under Dave Canales and ownership headed by David Tepper are likely focused strictly on roster development and on-field execution, they surely understand the value of a player controlling their own narrative in today's landscape. The lesson here for all of us is that reliance on external institutions for brand stability is becoming increasingly dangerous in the digital age. By emphasizing that he intends to double down on his own independent platforms, Newton is signaling a shift in how athletes view their post-career futures. For a team like ours that values legacy, seeing such a prominent figure move on from corporate media to assert full autonomy over his voice is both refreshing and eye-opening. We watch these developments closely because, even when the uniforms change, the impact of these leaders on our local community remains a permanent fixture of our collective history. The bottom line here is that while Cam Newton being let go by ESPN does not directly alter our roster under Dave Canales, it serves as a massive wake-up call for how we view our team legends in the modern era of sports media. For Carolina Panthers fans, this transition matters because it highlights the necessity of our own organization controlling its narrative in a league dominated by massive network interests. We are no longer just looking at a former star player. We are watching a pioneer adapt to a digital landscape where owning your platform is the difference between relevance and obscurity. This change does not impact our immediate salary cap or depth chart, but it underscores that our former icons are now focusing entirely on their independent ventures rather than national television desks. When we look at our upcoming schedule, including the high-stakes matchups against New Orleans, these media shifts remind us that the noise surrounding the league is louder than ever. We must remain laser-focused on the work happening at practice rather than the extracurricular commentary often found on networks like ESPN. This move changes the landscape of how we consume information regarding our playoff trajectory against division rivals. As we evaluate our chances to climb the standings under Dave Canales, we have to recognize that external analysts are often detached from the actual heartbeat of this locker room. By moving away from the traditional broadcasting machine, voices like those of our former greats can finally speak with more nuance and less corporate interference. This shift forces us to look closer at team-specific coverage to gain any real insight into how we stack up against the rest of the conference. The departure of franchise legend Cam Newton from ESPN marks a significant shift in his post-football career path. On the positive side, this exit grants Newton total creative freedom to prioritize his own media ventures, ensuring he is not beholden to corporate shifts or network budget cuts that have recently affected high-profile talent like Ryan Clark and Karl Ravech. By owning his platform, he avoids the precarious nature of traditional employment, a lesson he emphasized by comparing those without personal brands to extinct dinosaurs. Conversely, the downside is the loss of a massive, established megaphone that reached millions of viewers every single day. The risk is that moving exclusively to independent podcasting could isolate him from mainstream audiences who rely on major networks for their daily sports analysis. The industry reaction, particularly according to The Athletic reporter Andrew Marchand, highlights how volatile the current media landscape has become, noting the jarring nature of seeing analysts let go during live commercial breaks. Here's the thing nobody wants to say. While Newton claims to be at peace with his exit, the sudden nature of these layoffs suggests that even the most famous names in the sport are vulnerable to boardroom math. Here's where I land on this. I find the narrative that this is purely an internship-style blessing to be a bit optimistic. While owning your content is smart, losing a platform like First Take is objectively a setback in reach and influence. It is true that he will remain a relevant voice, but let us not pretend that being let go from a major network is a preferred outcome for any professional. Cam remains a polarizing and powerful figure, and while he will surely land on his feet, he is navigating a period where established media giants are no longer the safe harbors they once were for our favorite former athletes. When you look at the landscape of modern media alongside the evolution of our franchise, the picture that emerges is one of shifting power and the necessity of self-reliance for every brand. For the Carolina Panthers, the lesson here is clear under the guidance of Dave Canales and the leadership of David Tepper. We are currently in a period of intense organizational transition, and as we look ahead to the next few seasons, the focus must remain squarely on building an internal culture that does not depend on outside validation. Think about it this way. Just as Cam Newton noted regarding the importance of owning your own platform to avoid becoming obsolete, our organization must continue to build its own identity and sustainable success from the ground up, rather than relying on external narratives. You should feel a sense of cautious optimism heading into this season because this team is clearly prioritizing long-term structural stability over the quick, flashy headlines that often define the offseason. We are finally moving past the era of uncertainty, and while change can be jarring, it is a necessary step for a team that aspires to compete at the highest level again. The departure of Cam Newton from ESPN serves as a reminder that even legends must pivot and adapt to keep their influence alive, much like our roster is doing under the direction of the front office. Does the realization that media figures like Cam Newton and Ryan Clark must now lean entirely on their own platforms make you more or less likely to follow independent podcasts over traditional network coverage? If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Keep pounding. I'll see you in the next one.